please welcome Sander to our stage.
Thank you. Thank you. First, I would like to thank the organization. They give us some time to present the next conference. Next month, 17 and 18 of June, there will be another conference on internet trends in Bilbao. And the theme this year will be on mobile. We will have a lot of speakers, international speakers around the world, will I present a little bit later on the conference. There will be some networking opportunities. There will be 2 round tables. There will be more than 10 workshops. And on the second night, there will be a conference party, very important as well. Well, first, to get a better impression what's really happening in the mobile world, we would like to show you a video. It will take more or less 2 minutes. So maybe we can play the video right now. ¿Puedes poner el video, por favor?
Internet, we have 2 minutes and 51 seconds to explain that 2010 was the year that mobile connected the world. Consider. 2009, 300 million apps downloaded. 2010, 5 billion apps downloaded. If the world population grew at the same rate, it would jump from 7 billion people in 2009 to 112 billion people in a single year. But that's not really happening. This is the Mobile Year in Review 2010. In 2010, location-based services dominated. 2009, 200,000 Foursquare users. 2010, 5 million users. And 1 check-in from an astronaut in space. In 2010, social media continued the move to mobile. 347% growth in Twitter usage. 200 million mobile Facebook users. 100 million YouTube videos played on mobile devices every day. In 2010, half of all page views were to social network sites. Growth in one company's data traffic since 2008, 3,000%. Cell phones and desktop internet connected 1 billion people and devices, with a projected 40 times growth by 2015. The digital camera died in 2010. Your mobile phone's looking very guilty. February 2010, iPhone becomes most popular camera on Flickr. 2010, 76% of adults use their phone to take pictures. That includes your mom, by the way. In 2010, we learned that these app things aren't just all fun and games. In 2010, there was an app for just about everything. While those apps are great, the kids still love to text. 3,339, mind-blowing, average number of texts sent per month by US teens. For mobile carriers, 2010 was competitive enough to make Darwin blush. 96% of mobile users can choose from 3 or more providers. 92% are satisfied with their providers. Lowest rate per minute of 22 developed nations. Record 77 million smartphones shipped in the fall of 2010 alone. Plus, there's always this. 2009, 3G mobile internet on Mount Everest? No. 2010, 3G mobile internet on Mount Everest? Yup. But let's talk about the monies. Jobs created by mobile industry, 2.4 million. Money invested by wireless providers in 1 year, 20.4 billion. Fun fact if you like good news and money. Average wireless industry job paid 50% above the national average. To review, 2010 meant more usage, more data, more handsets, more apps, more developers, more competition, more mobile.
Well, those were the numbers of 2010. If you want to know what will happen in 2011, this year or next year, you have to visit Nonick conference. Who do we got on the program? There will be 2 round tables. One round table will be about applications. Although in the presentation yesterday of Sir Berners-Lee, he mentioned like, okay, it's nice, all those applications we're developing, but it's better to develop for the web. Well, I'm not the person to disagree with him, but I think there are also a lot of interesting applications worth to see. The other round table will be about the Arab Revolution, all the activists who are using Twitter, Facebook, and other social media will appear on the conference, so we can learn what will happen in that area. We have the responsible for Obama's re-election mobile platform. We are very proud on the president of Mozilla Europe, Mr. Tristan Nitot. He will join as well. He will have the opening keynote. I don't know if you are using the F1 and MotoGP application, but the company behind that will be joining Nonick as well. And last but not least, Mr. Buke, the CEO from Hipstamatic. That's an award-winning application from them. If you want to see the complete program, you can visit the website, nonickconference.com, or I think my colleagues gave you this brochure when you enter the hall, so you can give a look to this as well. Well, if you have any questions later on about the conference, or you want to know how your company can participate during the conference, well, I will be walking around, so you can ask me some questions. Last but not least, there is early bird discount, which ends up next Friday. So if you want to register, you can do it before Friday. You will have a discount of €50. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, are we ready to talk about mobile? Okay, we were discussing just backstage about how this audience is somewhat subdued, and we're trying to decide whether it's because it's post-lunch or you're just all extraordinarily polite. So let me tell you, in this next session, heckling is allowed, applauding is allowed, outbursts. Please recognize that this is your event too, so we'd love to hear from you. We are going to talk about mobile, the enterprise, tablets, and motive startup, and to join me on stage now, I'd like to invite first Brian Wong, who is the founder and CEO of Digg, and now me, Rory O'Neil, Vice President of Software and Services for Research in Motion. And we'll be beginning our panel, our discussions with Daniel Appelquist, who is here with us from Vodafone. So gentlemen, if you'll please join me here on stage. Thank you, Daniel. All right, Daniel, we turn it over to you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome back after lunch. I heard somehow that everybody was feeling a little bit, tired, a little bit, maybe lack of energy after lunch. So I wanted to ask, before I start, I wanted to just ask if everybody up. Come on, stand up. You must do this. It is mandatory. Okay. Now, I want you to stay standing if you have ever used the mobile web on your phone. The mobile web, the browser. Not an app, the browser, right? Okay, this is great, fantastic. This is amazing. Okay, now stay standing if you are a regular user of the mobile web. Use the mobile web almost all the time. Use it a lot. Yeah? Please? Okay, this is good.
That's more than I thought.
This is good. Stay standing if you use the mobile web, if you would say every day you use the mobile web. Okay, stay standing if you used it today. If between lunch and now you use the mobile web, you stay standing. You are dedicated people. This is great. Okay, you can go. So my job today is to get you excited as I am about the mobile web and about mobile web based on standards. My name is Daniel Appelquist. I work for Vodafone Group Research and Development. I know Vodafone is a quite well-known company in Spain, but you might not know that we have a research and development team that is based in London, where I am, in Newbury, in Düsseldorf, also in Madrid, where we do a lot of work on the future of how people use their phone, of how people communicate. And part of what we do is work in standards. I've actually been here for the past 2 days because I represent Vodafone in the W3C. I'm the web standards guy at Vodafone. And I'm also a member of something called the TAG, the Technical Architecture Group within the W3C, where we work on kind of the technical oversight for web standards for the web platform. One thing that I have done in a previous to this year is I was chair of something called the Mobile Web Best Practices Group, where we worked on a lot of thinking and best practices and something called Mobile OK, which is all about how do you develop the web, how do you, as a web developer, how do you address phones? How do you address smartphones? How do you address dumb phones? How do you address all kind of range of phones? And I won't talk about mobile OK today because I'm primarily trying to get you excited about the possibilities with smartphones, especially touchscreen smartphones, you know, as in a la Android, iPhone, these types of phones. But if you are interested in addressing very simple phones, I encourage you to look at Mobile OK. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, my Twitter name is Torgo, and I'll tweet some of them after the talk, so you can find them. I'm also active in the social web community. This is another area I'm not going to talk about, but if you're interested in social web and some new ideas around open source social, please visit onesocialweb.org. So this is a one-slide snapshot of kind of statistics plucked out from the last year about the growth of the mobile web. I don't think we need much discussion about how the mobile web has grown. It's interesting to me that when I asked how many people had used the mobile web or the web on their phone, almost everybody stayed standing. I can remember in 2005 when we started the mobile web initiative asking that same question to a group of a very similar group of people, and almost everybody sat down. So we've certainly come a long way in the last 5 years. I think it was interesting that yesterday people were trying to give a special message to Tim Berners-Lee after the keynote, and they were holding up their phones to show their web, essentially. You know, that was very touching. So let's see. But we still have a lot of challenges in the mobile web space. You can't easily, from the phone, from the browser, access device information. You can't access location. Well, you can access location now, and I'll talk about that, but you can't access contacts. You can't access the camera. You can't access too easily the device information. You can't figure out if you're roaming. All these kinds of things that you can do from an app, and these are some of the things that are pushing people into developing packaged apps. You can't build rich interactivity too easily. Your user needs to be connected in order to be able to in order to be able to launch the web browser, in order to be able to view your web app. So offline operation is difficult. The user interface is a bit clunky compared to apps, and there's no easy way to really monetize web apps besides using advertising. And these are some of the challenges that people are facing right now when they're trying to choose what platform to build their services on. So enter HTML5. I know you've seen this logo quite a bit over this. Well, I'm going to show it to you again. And I'm going to say something that may be a bit controversial, and that is that HTML5 has definitely become a buzzword. And by that, I mean its meaning has become a little bit obscure. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I would say that that's OK if HTML5 becomes a buzzword, because we want people to understand that HTML5 means a new way to address building web applications, not only across desktop and laptop PCs, but also across mobile devices. So HTML5, even though it doesn't officially include these things, it has come to mean also having the geolocation API, also having CSS, also having a fast JavaScript interpreter in the DOM. All these types of things are not actually part of HTML5, but they've come to be thought of as the open web platform. And the W3C actually calls it the open web platform, which I think is a bit of a better term. It also includes Canvas. It also includes SVG and video and audio and offline operation through various mechanisms, as well as web storage, which allows you to build an application that actually holds information locally so that you don't always have to go over the network, which is a huge issue when you're on mobile. This is a really one of the key issues that blocks user experience these days on the mobile web. I want to talk a little bit about W3C widgets. How many people are familiar with W3C widgets? No need to stand up, but just if you can raise your hand if you're familiar with W3C widgets. Okay, I see a few hands. Okay, I want more people to become familiar with W3C widgets. If you take anything out of this talk, please let it be that you research and you find some information on W3C widgets. Widgets is a standard from W3C. It's a way to package up a web application and its assets, images, scripts, etc., and then allow you, the user, to download and install that application into a web runtime environment. So effectively, it gives the user a very application-like experience for a web application. It includes a number of different ancillary standards like automatic updates, and it includes a whole permissioning and security model, which the web does not have through the browser. And I would say there's a very cool open source implementation which I want you to, which is Apache Wookie. And then we also have some real deployments specifically through WAC. And if you're interested in how do I build a widget, how do I distribute this widget through operators, through other parties, you should really take a look at wacapps.net, which is a whole organization which is a joint venture of mobile operators, Vodafone included, as well as Telefonica and others, which is attempting to provide a one-stop shop for developers to be able to build widgets, upload their widgets to WAC, and then distribute those widgets through a range of different places. Excuse me. So in general, better monetization opportunities. And you haven't seen a lot of WAC devices in the market up until now, but by the end of this year, we are going to see a lot of WAC devices, and we're going to see a lot more commercial pressure around WAC, or commercial information available around WAC. So I would urge you to take a look at wacapps.net today and start getting familiar with this technology. Get a jump on your competitors. Widgets. A lot of people try to, or might say that widgets and HTML5 are, or widgets, sorry, are in competition with HTML5. And to a certain extent, that's true, at least around the approach that HTML5 takes to offline operation and the approach that widgets take to offline operation. So the widget take is very much, you package up everything, you have an install event. It makes a web application work a lot more like a packaged application. The HTML5 approach has been this app cache standard, which basically is a way to cache your web application that you're viewing through the browser. So there are two different approaches. Having said that, you can use many features of HTML5 in widgets. So it's not actually true that HTML5 and widgets are not working together. They actually work pretty well together. And in fact, the developer Peter Paul Koch coined this term HTML5 apps, which I think is a very, and I'll include that, that link in my Twitter stream after the talk, so you can take a look at what he had to say. I think it was quite a good way to think about the whole problem set. One of the most interesting features of the web platform over the past year has been the addition of location, and that's across all different platforms. And I think when taking a step back, when we're talking about mobile these days, we're not just talking about phones like this. We're talking about tablets. We're talking about in-car devices. We're talking increasingly about consumer electronics devices like televisions and types of devices that we haven't yet, the Nintendo Wii, other types of devices that we haven't even thought of yet. Indeed, devices that have different modes of input and output. So, and across all of these devices, we're increasingly having access to the device's location, and that's increasingly becoming important when the device is a portable device, such as a tablet, especially when it's a tablet, that kind of thing. How many people are familiar, this is the last question I'll ask, how many people are familiar with the Geo API in the web, or that it exists? Yeah, okay, so we have one or two people. Well, increasingly, when you go to a website, such as Twitter, such as Facebook, I mean, we're talking about first-tier websites here. They're using the geolocation API in the browser to grab your location and enhance your experience, right? So allowing you to check in on Foursquare, allowing you to see local search results on Google. And this is because of the geolocation API, which is something that was built within W3C. And it's already shipping on Opera, Firefox, Safari, Chrome, IE9, so all of the desktop browsers. And it's on iPhone, it's on Android. It's on most of the mobile browsers as well, although not Windows Phone 7 yet. So what's next for APIs? I would say that the W3C is working on a number of different APIs, and this is worth looking out for because we're going to be able to access from within the web browser your contact book, your calendar, your file system, capturing audio and video. We saw a very interesting demonstration yesterday from Opera, which is not, it's an alpha, but it was a demonstration of an augmented reality experience within the browser, where the browser is capturing the video and then layering information on top of that video in an augmented reality experience. So actually being able to do that within the browser, within a web application, I find that pretty impressive. And it's going to be made possible by these types of APIs. Many of these, it should be noted, are already available to WAC developers, but those APIs are proprietary. So what W3C is working on is standardizing the approach to, so that it can be available across a range of browsers and web runtimes, not just WAC-compatible web runtimes. So the key issue here is privacy, and this is something W3C is also really focused on. So the question here is who gets to use this data for what purpose? I don't have a good answer for these questions, but I wanted to raise this question with you and make sure you're aware of it. I think some of these issues, which I have up on the screen here, are the issues that you need to be thinking about as web developers that are especially as you build applications that increasingly reach into the phone and pull out personal private data about users and use that for very good reasons, but then how are you using that data afterwards? Is it appropriate, the collection of the information that you're doing? Is it under the user's control? Have you given them notice that you are going to take their contact data, that you're going to take their location? Have they given their consent? Have they given their consent for you to use it for a secondary purpose? So you may be using the user's location to give them a local map, but have they given their consent for you to target advertising to them based on that location? That's going to be increasingly important in the regulatory framework that we have in the EU and in the regulatory framework that we have in the US, where there's a lot of discussion around the secondary use of data. And distribution, is this being retransmitted? How long is it being retained? And basically, the key issue is transparency and giving the user feedback. I'm running out of time here, so I want to just talk briefly about mobile web application best practices. This is something that we worked on last year and finished up last year. It's a set of guidelines for how web developers can build great mobile web experiences in the browser. And the graphics that I'm displaying here are from some online flip cards, but I'll display the URL at the end for those who are interested in viewing the whole thing. There's a lot of information behind this. So it's basically things like sparing the network, making sure that you're aware when you're using the network and that you're using it appropriately. Giving users a good user experience, remembering to use the web technologies and use web principles like URIs, designing flexible user experiences, exploiting device-specific features, mobile-specific features like geolocation, optimizing response time. This is the URL for that, and there's a lot of technical information there that should be useful for mobile web developers. Okay, I've got like 2 seconds left. So what's next for the mobile web? Some very interesting stuff, which I wish we had time to talk about, but if you're interested, it's things like touch events, so adding touch to the browser. We have all these events in the browser like mouse over, mouse on, stuff like that. They don't make sense for the new world of touch screens, so we need to add touch to the browser. More device APIs, more geolocation, stuff like do not track, which is coming out of W3C as a privacy standard. Keep up to date. Make sure you keep up to date with the latest on web standards at w3.org. To finish up, the web is evolving, and thanks very much.
Great to see all that participation, too. Standing up, good exercise. We are going to now hear from Rory and find out what's happening over at the World of RIM. Rory?
Thank you very much for the invitation to present today. Really appreciate it. Just before we get started, we'd like to share with you a video of a company called The Astonishing Tribe, who write UI for various platforms. Research in Motion acquired them very recently, but let's just see their perspective on the future of screen. So if we could run the video, please. Oh. Repeat. One always has to be really careful when you're talking about the future of something, particularly when you're talking about the future of the internet, and coming out and showing a video like that. However, I feel really safe in this country that if you talk about the future of the World Cup and a country like Sweden winning it, you're okay as long as you're in Spain. What I'd like to sort of share in the next sort of 15 minutes or so is just a perspective of why the mobile internet is creating some incredible opportunities for developers, for businesses, for consumers, right the way across our region. And if I can, I'd like to just share a BlackBerry perspective of some of the trends that we're seeing, across this region in particular. Let me start on the enterprise side, which you'd kind of expect, I guess, from a BlackBerry representative. Businesses are struggling to cope with the disruptive power of the mobile internet, and they're figuring out how to embrace it so that they can spend more time with their customers. And every business that we do across Spain and the rest of Europe is trying to desperately understand how they can leverage the mobile internet to get really, really close to their customers. Because what accessing the mobile internet means for business people is that they can make decisions when they're servicing their customers, which every business leader across Europe and every leader of a public service across Europe cares about transforming so that people make better decisions at the point of servicing their customers. And there's three great principles of the mobile internet that businesses are getting their head around. The first is when you think about traditional research. In business, great brands, great companies have spent millions of euros trying to figure out how to capture customer needs. Businesses now can tap into the way that people use mobile internet and how they use social networks to capture a whole new level of understanding of customer need. All of you, well, I won't say all of you, but many of you will use Facebook or Twitter or other social networks. When you use those services, you leave a footprint about you online. And businesses are already exploring how your consumer needs can be represented online and how they can tap into those needs in order to better serve you with products or services that they're trying to build or create. The second aspect is around the number of times these businesses touch you and your experience across the mobile internet. And let me give you one example in the retail sector. Great companies like El Corte Inglés or Carrefour, Aldi, are thinking about not just their store strategy and not just their online strategy, but about their mobile strategy. And more importantly, as brands look to connect with you across this region, they're thinking about their multimodal strategy. How do they deliver a compelling, rich, and connected experience right the way through your browsing or your shopping experience? We're not too far away from consumers being able to browse and configure products or services while they're at their desktop at home, update that product or service on the train or on the bus on the way to the store, walking into the store, tapping and exchanging that configuration of product with the sales assistant, and then tapping to pay for that product before they leave. That's the experience that brands want to create with you. And then the third thing, and arguably most importantly for businesses as they think about gaining an advantage from the mobile internet, is about how they empower people with context. Again, using the example, retailers collect an incredible amount of information on how you shop and what you buy through their loyalty schemes. And if they can connect all that intelligence about how you actually shop and how you actually make purchases with your next intention to purchase, it will be an incredibly rich and powerful thing for them and arguably for you. We were delighted to work with a company in Madrid called Lavinia. It's one of my favorite stories because they're a wine store. And what they're looking at doing is in connecting their mobile site and their mobile store with their customer loyalty information. They can tell that I've arrived in Madrid because of the location that's on my device. They can push compelling offers to me in real time and ask me if I want to send a certain case of my favorite wine back to London because it's on offer. Consumers will subscribe to those services only if they're valuable. Now, the big thing behind this from a perspective, as you take those three things, what businesses are trying to create and what brands are trying to create are moments of mutual interest. And that's an incredibly powerful thing for the relationship between buyers and suppliers. We don't want a transactional relationship with brands. We want a rich, rounded relationship with brands that create interest for us and not just sell us a service. And we talk about those as being moments of mutual interest between a brand and a customer. So moving on just a little bit, and this is just kind of, again, a perspective. The first round of this explosion of mobile internet was you've got to have an app. And you've got to have an app on a certain device or a certain platform, and you've got to have an app in order to engage with customers, you've got to have an app in order to access the mobile internet. Well, whether it's us or the industry or developers or users, we've created a highly disposable industry. The huge challenges for the developers today are not what to write and how to write. It's getting your app discovered, and then secondly, making sure that it's not disposed. Various statistics are out there in the industry about the number of applications that are deleted after just being used once. And they're deleted after being used once because they're disposable. Highly disposable applications. What we've got to do is work together to capture a richer experience, make sure that apps can be discovered, but more importantly, make sure that apps can be used. And the future of the mobile internet for consumers and the use cases of mobile are going to be built on three core principles. The first is social, the second is contextual, or context, and the third is commerce. And I'll walk through this just in a little with you, right? I mean, the internet's already social. You don't need a speech or a talk from BlackBerry or anybody else today to tell you about how the internet is social. Perhaps our best example is we've built a community around social messaging that is BlackBerry Messenger, or BBM. And we have a community of 43 million using BlackBerry Messenger for real-time messaging right the way around the world. And if you want to see the impact of social messaging and the dynamic of how it changes the way that people interact with the mobile internet, we can remember the World Cup final. And as we sat and we looked across our network, when Spain played Holland and Iniesta scored that, I guess, fairly well-accepted goal in this country, our traffic on our network went up 3,000% a minute after he scored. Because people worldwide were using BBM from a social community perspective. And it's not just messaging. You know, the future of games, right? We already know how social games have become. We've all heard in the recent weeks about various networks right the way across the world. Sony PlayStation Network has 75 million people in it. Xbox Live has 25 million people connecting in games, and that's because you can't invite 1,000 people round to your house to play games. But you can do it on the mobile internet. It's not just games, music. You know, the future of mobile internet isn't side-docking devices and moving various restricted content from one property to another. The future of music on the mobile internet is about making sure you can share your music with your community in the way that you want to share it. And adding things like games and music and building on networks and messaging, is a huge part of how we will all use the mobile internet going forward. Context. Okay, so I have to make an admission. I promise I will talk, not just football, right? But I'm an Arsenal fan. And for those of you who don't know, Cesc Fabregas is an Arsenal player. Today. One of my favorite applications is an application from Sky Sports. Now, the reason I like the Sky Sports application is because it's fully integrated to my BlackBerry experience. I'm a BlackBerry user, as you'd imagine. I tend to live my life by my calendar. My Sky Sports application sends me real-time updates to my diary and to my inbox of every single time Arsenal concede a goal. Because we don't score too many these days, right? And that's the rich experience, a really, really simple example we're trying to create. Adidas, with their My Coach application, they're working with the London Olympics to bring Team GB brands to the mobile internet. Coach is now allowing to work with your GPS location so you can configure your everyday run or your everyday swim or your everyday bike ride and interact richly with people in the Adidas arena that are configuring and controlling and improving and optimizing the way you work, or the way you work in your workout or your routines. It won't be long before, if I fill up in a petrol station or a gas station, my phone will know that I'm filling up, and it will push maps and turn-by-turn navigation or real-time traffic information to me so that I can make a much richer contextual decision. And it's that type of data to tap into as you build apps and you build the richness that users will actually benefit from. And then the last piece is commerce. And I love Daniel's point on privacy. In our world, like, my phone is my phone. It has a picture of my children on it. It has my music. It has my applications. My photos are all on my phone. And you better make sure, as you build up applications that access the mobile internet, that privacy and security, but more importantly, privacy, are the cornerstone of what you build. Because as this thing explodes, and we move into the total removal of cash, and the total removal of wallets, and the total removal of plastic because you carry everything on your mobile device, you better believe that security and privacy and the protection of identity is going to be critical. And we've only just started to see the explosion of the microtransactions that will be supported as the mobile internet embraces the commerce that's transacted across the world. So this has always been a user experience battle. And what we have to do on our platform or anybody else's platform is make sure, open up the tools to developers to program to highly social, highly contextual, and rich in commerce applications so that they can be discovered and not disposed. So, forgive me, right? I had to do at least 20 seconds on a quick sales pitch, right? I apologize. 4 weeks ago, we actually announced our first tablet experience. We announced yesterday that the UK date of availability of the BlackBerry Playbook will be June 16th. We're delighted to bring this tablet technology to market. Now, what's interesting about this whole thing is the debate between where a tablet is used and how tablets are used and how they will coexist or not exist with phones and smartphones and everything else that we hold. Well, the principal foundation of BlackBerry's approach to the tablet market is based on an uncompromised experience of the web. 75% of web pages today are written in Flash. And I know that HTML5 is a very important programming language, and HTML5 will arguably be the future of the way that tablets will interact with the web. But there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of sites worldwide that serve up games or corporate content in Flash. And it's important as we build out on these technologies that we support the language of the web today and the language of the web tomorrow. Mobile means multitasking. We'll sit and wait 30 seconds when we're sat down using a desktop or a laptop for a web page to load. In the mobile world, you won't. You'll wait 3 seconds, and then you'll move on. Multitasking is a fundamental piece of any type of tablet computing or any type of mobile computing. And for us, given our customer base and the way that we're using the mobile internet, it's important that it's enterprise ready. It's got enterprise-grade security. The privacy and the data protection models are there so that companies can expand and explore use cases as fantastic as doctors, physicians, and nurses looking at real-time X-rays while they're at a patient's bedside making clinical decisions. That's secure tablet computing. And my kind of last point, if I can, before I finish, is, and this may be a little strange to hear from a hardware manufacturer like BlackBerry, is every single thing we carry, whether it's a feature phone, smartphone, or tablet, they're pieces of plastic and glass until you turn them on. And it's the software and the services and the rich applications and content that you guys can build that will differentiate those platforms. And one last mention, if I can, we're delighted to work with a whole host of partners across the European region. There's a great entrepreneur that's based in Bilbao called Carlos Polo, who runs a company called NTS. And if you want to hear about how you reach hundreds of thousands of people with rich applications on our platform, Carlos is here today, his company's here today, down in the exhibit, I think at least one of his companies is here today. NTS and Documents are here today. So have a chat with him. You can hear from a local entrepreneur about how to build rich applications that differentiate tablets and differentiate smartphones. But thank you very much for your attention, and look forward to the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And also we should note and thank RIM for its support of this event. And Brian, we now turn to you for your words of wisdom or just entertainment. Thanks. Brian Wong.
Don't get bored yet. Hello. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Everybody awake? Woo. All right. All right. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm really honored to be here today. It's been an amazing experience so far. Just the fact that the city of Bilbao exists, I know that such a utopian city can exist, is amazing. Thank you. I walk outside and there's trams running on grass. Like there's grass next to the rails. It's amazing, mind-blowing. And I actually love it how not a lot of you guys have earpieces in, because I'll usually make a joke and then it'll be one set of laughter and then another set of laughter right after. Right, and then all right, awesome. All right, so today I wanted to talk about a topic that I'm really, really passionate about. Wanted to share with you guys the concept of the emotive startup. So a company that can think, breathe, live emotionally. What does that mean? Well, it means personality. And I'll elaborate, of course, through sort of the several points that I'll bring up today. Wanted to note that my Twitter handle is Brian_Wong. The guy who has the other one is an imposter. All right, so today I have 8 ways to go beyond technology. I think what we're very focused on is this stigma of mobile, using mobile as a separate category. It shouldn't be a separate category. I know a lot of people have said that I'm preaching the choir, but what it really is it's something that's next to you. It is already, you've seen all the stats in 2014, mobile web browser usage will surpass desktop usage in 2014. So it shouldn't be separate. So how do we go beyond technology? How do we make things emotional? Wanted to first talk about me. Why is there some skinny Asian kid on stage talking about mobile? What am I here to talk about? Why am I even remotely allowed to be here in the first place? Well, I used to actually work for a company called Digg. This is actually the beer fridge at Digg, and I wanted to share with you what I had to go through when I was working there. Somehow they found out I'm not of age in the US, you have to be 21. They decided to notify the entire company. Anyway, so my time at Digg ended in May last year. I decided to go and travel. I was actually laid off from Digg because they had lost 25% of their traffic in May last year. And they said, hey, you're in business development, you're kind of redundant, go home. Instead of sort of punching myself, I decided, let's see if we can create something new. And I remember actually it was a year ago this week that I went home on Mother's Day to tell my mom that I got laid off. She told me it was the worst Mother's Day I've ever gotten. But today, I mean, this last couple weeks, I went back and it was a little bit of a different picture. So very recently, I founded a company called Keep. We're a mobile rewards network. Basically, the short pitch of it is you get free stuff for playing games. Real rewards rather than weird badges and status things and coins and things that nobody cares about. Let's have real rewards. And so I wanted to share with you a really quick video of what we're all about. For too long, I think we've seen too much of a focus in the advertising industry on display and banner advertising.
Mobile advertising today is effectively a port of web-based advertising to mobile phones.
Most of the ads that are out there today, they take you out of the experience. They're really boring. It's the same stuff that we've seen for years.
Keep is trying to take the other way around by realizing that sometimes in moments of joy and happiness, you have the ability to reach someone.
The achievement moment is when someone has a milestone in a game and they're excited and they feel good. If you can connect with them and tell them that you're proud of them and you want to reward them, that's bound to be interesting.
A promotion is a promotion when it's just handed to you. But when it's an earned promotion, when it's that earned feeling, you tie that to a reward and you have more of an affinity toward it. That's what makes the Keep reward so unique.
It doesn't feel like an ad in any way. Like to the user, they're stoked. They've completed something, they've just gotten a new high score, something's happened, and they're prompted with just something for free.
It's a reward, it's a thank you, it's a gift that's different than a normal ad.
The idea behind the achievement, which is exactly when you're capturing the customer at that point of elation, to convert them into a brand advocate is great.
You're actually proud of what you're receiving. You're proud that you've unlocked this. It's not just, I got a good deal, it's that I did something special to get this good deal.
I think Keep will make the advertising space a lot more fun, a lot more exciting.
Keep is basically promising to bring a lot of innovation to traditional advertising.
Actually getting real physical rewards back to the user and discounts and whatever it may be is just really unique.
Keep offers the promise to advertisers that customers are going to be paying more attention to their messages.
When you're hinging upon positive achievement moments by providing a reward and a gift and to help them realize that you actually care about them, you're building that trust in the beginning. I think there's nothing more powerful than that. So we launched about a month ago. We actually, in 7 months, we were able to build this company. There's now 12 of us. We recently raised $4 million in venture capital. This was our launch very recently. Now, I wanted to dive straight into the topic at hand today, and that is being beyond technology. And so we're seeing right now a very popular sort of business acumen discussion around you can add enchantment from Guy Kawasaki and service and customer service with Zappos and the thank you economy, all this fluffy stuff you like to hear about. But really what this is actually about is how companies are becoming emotional and how they can create brands that customers can relate to. And so what it is anybody can create an online shoe store. I mean, obviously it's a little bit more difficult than what I just said, but what it is and what sets you apart are the things that you do beyond that technology. And so I wanted to talk about the 8 things, and you're seeing sort of this notion of these layers of social, real virtual bridge, games, and then services. These items have made the web and made your products more accessible, more tied to people who are actually having these devices in their pockets. And mobile has just simply enabled these things. Mobile is an enabler. I think that our new generation right now, yes, they are that cute. The new generation is really the generation that grew up with an in their cribs, so to speak. And so there's generations that have known nothing but a world where you can browse and search anything you want and be a genius as long as you have an iPhone and Wikipedia. So these things have created a new generation that are looking for products that are just beyond what you see. So the first is moments instead of touch points. And what I mean by that is right now what you're seeing with the world's greatest brands is that they like to emphasize moments, not just functionality. Not just, how I can use this or how its utility is going to help me, but rather moments. I don't want to be cliche, but I'm going to show one company that does it really, really well, and that's Apple. Apple never, ever, ever, ever just says, well, it can do this, it can do that, right? With the, I don't want to point out names, but oh, it's an unfettered browser experience. Like, nobody cares about the functionality. They care about the emotional aspects. They care about how they can use the technology and the moments to make their lives easier. And Apple's done that really well. Serendipity is the second one. And serendipity is sort of this magic of chance. How you can stumble upon and create your own experience. Because this thing is literally next to your ass the entire time. You want to be able to use it as an appendage. This is something that's so personal to you that you want to be able to dictate how you will use it. Mutual interests, right? As you guys like to call it. Through color, for example. And I know you guys may have seen this app, but may not have. It is a photo sharing app. But what's so amazing about color, aside from all the money that they were able to raise, is the fact that they are able to create a model that allows people to stumble around and discover the interface on their own. Color does not have any labels. They're all pictures. There's all tiles and elements where people just touch around and they make their own experience. Rather than saying to the user, you do this, then you do that, then you do this. It's how can we serendipitously discover a way to use the app in the way that you can own it. Another app that's done really well is Yobongo on the right-hand side. Yobongo, if you guys have not heard of them, is actually based as well. They're a group chat app. It's actually pure serendipity. Essentially, if you were to all have Yobongo right now, based on where you are, you can start to chat with people around you. So this is an explicit expression of how serendipity can be part of our user experiences, and we're seeing this trend grow with mobile. How can we create our own experiences rather than have a company jam them down our throats? How do we have the moments that we can create, and how can we make them ours? The ownership is a very key part. Number 3 is knowledge and validation. So how does knowledge and validation have anything to do with emotions? Really, knowledge, I like to say, is sort of the currency of how you can express, factoids and knowledge, but at the same time have the ability to tie it to how you feel about how you can contribute. And so we see a lot of very crowdsourced elements behind some of the world's most popular apps today that just involve crowd and knowledge. And Quora, for example, if you see it, you notice the red boxes around sort of the upvotes and the follow questions and everything. I love this, wait for it, the E moment, right? When you get that feeling where someone retweeted you, or they voted your question up, or they did whatever, you go, someone actually cared. I'm actually smart. That is what I call the E moment. And so when you see knowledge and validation in that level, that's how you create that affinity. Because people start to attribute that intrinsic value, that feeling of happiness with the actual platform and product that you're creating. So the personality is actually how you enable those emotional reactions. How can we help the human that is at the end of that user interface? It's a human being using your thing. How can that person feel? And that's the biggest point here, is how can we allow people to feel? Same thing with Namesake, which is another app that's been very popular online for working professionals. You've got popular comments, follow conversations. You can upvote pretty much anything, right? And that's a big deal. People want to see that constant validation. Formspring, same thing, right? They actually decided to make it even more explicit. You can smile at a question. I mean, yes, it's emotional. They want you to yee at the question. So that's a big deal as well. Number 4 is emotional ROI, and ROI is return on investment. What I'm trying to share here, though, with emotion is there's no financial transaction involved, but there's a return on emotional investment if you are able to share with your users how you feel you'd like them to be able emotionally connected as well. There's an app here called Path that you guys might have heard of that actually does this really well as well. Notice how when you want to react to a picture, you actually use smiley faces. And what Path likes to do is, rather than just call it a photo sharing app, they actually call themselves moments sharing app. And a moment is a picture, and then the video is not just a video, it's a longer moment. Right? So you have things where you have people creating a dynamic and a brand around an experience that doesn't necessarily have to be what's on face value. And I think with mobile, because it's so much more personal, emotional connection, people are able to relate to it more. And you see this time and time again. right? You have services that build their own personalities, essentially, right? Zappos is well known for their service. In fact, it is part of their core competency and their core values as a business. It is always about the customer, and this is repeated time and time and time again. But even below, with Flickr, as you can see right below, little things like, Ni hao, Brian T.F. Wong. Here's the thing. They didn't have to say that. They could have just said, welcome to the Flickr service. But rather than doing that, they decided to add personality. And I think when people see that, you have to end up loving that brand that you're using. Because there are brands that are not loved. And I'll share some examples a little bit later on. But there are brands that are not loved, and they are not forgiven. When you love someone, you can forgive them, right? So if you love a brand, you can forgive them for any mistakes that they make. So creating that love, that emotional connection, is so unbelievably important. Build and fortify foundations. What we realize in here, this is even more appropriate with W3C meetings happening all week, and also having a sort of a non-corporate affiliated body be able to define these things and to help better the web world, is what I feel and how companies can actually generate this emotional connection as well is to be like regular human beings in giving back. And what I mean by that is through open source, of course, right? And I think a lot of companies that have really embraced this are starting to build that affinity and that sort of camaraderie with the people that are using their services. This happens to be Facebook's open source server infrastructure platform. They decided to release their server infrastructure based on their data centers to the world to use for free. And they decided to open this up and to share with the world because this is giving back. This is building your foundation. This is helping the world contribute to a project that allows your brand to further its own objectives, but at the same time further everybody else's objectives. This mutual interest thing is a really good point because I think that's how all of us end up connecting, again, as human beings. WordPress, same thing, open source, right? WordPress created a business model out of it as well, but they were able to make money and also have the ability to share with the world what they've created as well. Number 6 is gifts and rewards. You'll notice that I actually just signed up for a campaign from MailChimp. You guys might have heard of them or might have used them. Just for no reason at all, they decided to email me and say, hey, we'd like to send you a free t-shirt. Thank you for being a customer. Just whatever, here's a reward, here's a gift. And one of these things that really spoke to me is the fact that it's just, hey, thank you. We didn't really need you to do anything else, but just to be a customer and us being appreciative of that, we'd like to gift you for it. So that is so important. I think a lot of people are forgetting that the serendipitous aspect of gifting and rewarding, if I show up out of nowhere and everybody gets a free BlackBerry playbook because I think that's something that's going to happen, right? I think it'd be really because everybody would connect really deeply with it. But I mean, jokes aside, this is a type of joy and happiness and serendipity that I think customers are looking for. Character of process. I think people need to build characters around products and may not necessarily have to be explicitly so, like different services like Plancast. You'll notice a lot of brands take it to a next level by actually making their brand a figure, a sentient human being, or a sentient thing, something that lives and breathes. But at the end of the day, your brand has to live and breathe. It has to relate to the customer, because or else you will suffer the consequences of not actually being loved, which is something that I will share right at the end. Last is inception. What is inception? What does that mean? Why is inception here? I'm referring to the movie, of course, but at the same time, to what I talk about as a dynamic of helping your customers, your employees, and anybody who's involved with your business feel your passion and your vision, right? Because here's the thing. Everybody is your brand. Everybody creates the quality. Your customer service representatives, right? Your employees, right? Your advisors, your investors. Everybody who's involved with your company is creating and helping craft that personality for you. And so the inception is the process in the beginning where you help them feel the vision on their own, help them come up with the vision. For us, when we started Keep and we wanted to recruit and we started to bring on more people, we used this process to help people feel the vision and to come up with it themselves. We explained the market dynamics. We said, hey, mobile gaming is exploding. Hey, mobile banner ads kind of suck. Nobody actually taps on them. Oh, hey, there's a lot of really interesting things around games like achievements. Put everything together and maybe we'll figure it out. So I think a lot of people who ended up coming up with the vision themselves, you have this process of inception where people are able to feel the vision themselves. And that, again, creates that emotional connection. So here are the consequences of not creating that emotional connection with your brands. I mean, we just mentioned Sony's massive failure in their at the same time as well, you also have, for example, Hotz, George Hotz, who was a hacker who actually opened up the PS3 platform, actually PSP, sorry, for people to play hacked games, actually created a ton of sales for Sony. It actually generated a lot of sales because it wasn't a closed system and he opened it up for them. So Sony, in its utter thanks, decided to shut him down, sue him to death. How does that share with the rest of the world how you love your customer and how you can create different ways for them to use it and to help them serendipitously make the device theirs? And so by doing this, what Sony basically did was slap everybody's faces and say, hey, we don't care about you guys trying to do something innovative with our platform. We don't want to be open. We're just going to make this statement. And it was a very bad statement. And so the love has to be there. The customer has to love you. And in order to do that, you have to create that emotional affinity. And that will only come through being able to connect with them through the different ways that I mentioned, and I think many more ways that our creative minds can allow. So my last message to you is, feel or die. Thank you very much.
Well, they didn't like you very much, Brian, I'm sorry to say. Oh, where do we want to begin? I'm going to begin, Brian, with you because you just had a chance to speak, and I apologize to you guys for making you wait through this for a minute, but it sounds to me like you can kind of listen to what you're saying, and I like this idea, certainly, of the emotional connection. But can't you kind of, as a company, go down the path if you aren't careful of sort of prostituting yourself to your consumers in some fashion? Buying their love, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, these things, like everything has to be used sparingly, right? And I think, giving away too much stuff or being too emotional about it, sappy, and you become needy, it's much like a boyfriend or girlfriend who needs too much. And so you want to have that sort of dynamic that is a nice balance. And I think a lot of it actually comes from DNA, the DNA of the business itself, where the business was grown from, what the founders and the presidents and the CEOs and the executive leadership really stand for. And so all of this trickles down. And not being too heavy about it is actually very important as well. You raise a good point.
So I want to turn to two much more established companies here and maybe just get your reaction to this, because Vodafone and RIM, you have customers who love you, and you show some love back to them. What do you take away from Brian's conversation? Can you become more loving companies? Do you think it's necessary for you to do, for that matter?
Well, I'm gonna. Hello.
What have I done? Okay.
Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, aren't I?
I'm going to completely sidestep that.
Excellent. That's the answer to the question you wish had been asked.
What I would say is that, it's funny. I think a lot of what you're talking about is creating emotional experiences, right? And creating experiences that really draw people in. And I think if I could connect that to some of the stuff that I was talking about, some people might not feel like initially, that there is a connection, right? I feel like there is a really strong connection, because it's all about, when you're creating that kind of emotional experience, you have to create a fluid user experience, right? And you have to be responsive to users. So stuff like, W3C touch events, right? That's all about responding to the user, touching and swiping and stuff like that, being able to control the user experience to that degree. And so I feel like Brian's right in that we're moving into this kind of world where those kinds of experiences are more magical, or have to, to use Steve Jobs' term, right? They have to be more emotional.
I love how he owns magic now, really.
Yeah, everything's magic.
Walt Disney's going to sue him.
Yeah. And I guess one of the things that I hope people take away from my talk is that I think the work that's going on evolving the web platform and evolving the mobile web platform is helping to make that into a platform where you can create those kinds of magical experiences. Yeah, hopefully.
And I want to come back to that in a second, but Rory, you've got a product in the market that people refer to as their crackberry. They're so addicted to it. That's a different kind of engagement. And what I found interesting, one of the things you said when you talked about my phone, and yet for many people, how many people here are BlackBerry users? And of those of you, keep your hands up for a moment. If you're a BlackBerry user, how many of you are using it or got it through business, your business engagement, rather than personally? Yeah, so here's this product that our corporations are giving to us, and yet people, you feel like it's your own, right? You don't feel like it belongs to the company. Right? That's your own device. What do you think? There's a.
I saw his head movement. Sorry.
But I mean, this is the issue with mobility, right? With all of these devices, and we become very attached to them, and they, no matter what the origin, whether it was given to you as a product from that you purchased yourself or that your organization did, you have this sense of attachment to it.
No, for sure. I think it is about experience. I think if we just look at our business, right? So, we've over 50 million subscribers worldwide, of which 50% of them are pure consumer users, particularly here in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. The phenomenon of working when you want to or playing when you want to wasn't driven by BlackBerry, right? That's a social phenomenon of people wanting to do what they want to do when they wanted to do it, and actually getting engaged in experiences that they love doing when they. We might have enabled it along the way a little bit, but for sure it wasn't something we created. And back to kind of the initial point, I think great brands do try and understand, more importantly, how to create unique experiences with customers. Love's a very strong word, right? It's a very powerful word. I think it's very difficult for you to love or show emotion for your customers without truly understanding who they are and the diversity that they are. And to make it relevant, right, I mean, not every single customer of smartphone technology loves touch, right? Not every single user of smartphone technology loves QWERTY. Not every single user of smartphone technology loves this or loves that kind of feature. But I think to truly create a compelling experience in the mobile world, it's about choice, right? And that arguably is the most important thing.
Yeah, Daniel.
Just on that, I think that I've seen a lot in the past couple of years when I look into how youth are using mobile, about youth that are teens that are using BlackBerry all the time, and they're so passionate about BlackBerry. And part of it is because it's a trusted platform. They know that when they're using BlackBerry Messenger to talk to their friends, that there's a trusted link there. That's not going to leak out onto a social network, or that they didn't want it to leak out into. And I'm starting to see some really interesting things like multiple screen experiences where kids are watching X Factor. I don't know what the Spanish equivalent of X Factor is, but imagine some reality television show where people are doing stupid things. And then, and they want to talk to their mates about it, so they're talking to some group of friends on Facebook on their laptop, right? And then they're talking to their real friends on BlackBerry, using BlackBerry Messenger. And that, to me, is a really interesting dynamic. And I think that we, as an industry, we haven't internalized that, how people are adopting that technology.
Can I challenge you, though? I think one of the things that you guys have done with the playbook is obviously by using the word play, you're trying to imply, unless you weren't implying, that there's some play involved in there. I found that messaging was very confusing, that you were obviously on one level very business-oriented, but on the other level very play-oriented. And you mentioned how moments of play and moments of work can sort of intermingle with each other. But what is the messaging, and how have you guys found this working and not working?
Well, I think, and I don't want to become very analyst about it, right? But every enterprise is dealing with the same trend right now, which is dealing with consumerization, right? And what consumerization means is people can choose what they want to use and use technology that they want to use, and they want to use it while they're at work, right? And for standard IT operating practice, that creates heterogeneity. diversity, which implies cost. But what we prefer to say is that there is a tremendous opportunity if business leaders can allow people and give people the technology that lets them play as hard as they want when they want to, and work as hard as they want when they want to, and make great decisions when they want to, then they'll get a better experience and ultimately drive greater user adoption, which is what they were trying to drive in the first place by giving out technology. All right, so, I think, it's arguably a confusing time in the way that it's evolving, but you can't separate professional technology from consumer technology anymore. There's no boundary anymore.
So you're saying you're single-handedly contributing to thousands of hours wasted in corporate playtime?
I think.
Well, just as the BlackBerry, let's be honest, the BlackBerry contributed to thousands of hours ignored of family time, right? Because we sat at the dinner table and we checked our email.
Sure.
And I think your point, you actually tee up, I think the point I want to make. This is a panel, a discussion about mobile. Frankly, I'm not sure I heard anything specifically mobile, except for the use of that word a lot, in anything you said. So much as what I heard was, this stuff is becoming pervasive. That over time, the pervasiveness of a connection, whether that's through Wi-Fi or through a cellular network, the apps, whether they are permanent or disposable, the experience you want with your consumers, or even, I don't really see anything innately mobile about KIP. Right? I might play games on my mobile device. I might actually sit at a computer. The same experience. Mobility maybe is less important. And I think what we're moving toward is a time where what we now call mobility is just kind of using stuff, engaging with apps and information, and becomes much more, if not pervasive and invisible.
Can I say, I agree with that.
Okay, you can stop right there then.
But I think there's a danger. And that danger is if we start to think, well, actually, there's no such thing as the mobile user experience anymore. It's all really just user experience of the internet or of the web or apps or whatever we want to call it. I think we're going to lose something, because there are cases where you really want, where being mobile is a different modality. A modality of presence, right? So sitting down in front of a computer is a different kind of way to interact with information than walking through an airport trying to find what gate you want, right?
That makes sense. That's like obvious talk, though.
Yeah.
I think part of it is, rather than using mobile as a criticism point, we want to use it as a productivity point, where you can create experiences and preserve the experiences that are ideal for those mobile. What really frustrates me, though, is how when you immediately talk about mobile, some folks start to envision in their heads what's handicapping about it, right? It's a smaller screen, right? It's a less of a rich experience, right? But part of what it is, though, is you're actually seeing some very unique uses of sensors in mobile devices that you've never seen before. So little things like by being more accurate around location. Mm-hmm. People are now using the microphone to detect ambient noise.
Yeah.
Right? That is really cool. So if, let's say, the GPS is like you're either in a laundromat or a bar. So depending on how noisy it is, you are either in the bar or the laundromat. So things like that, I think, is so amazing. How people are starting to see it as more of a more rich device, rather than something that's handicapped.
I would totally agree. I think it is different, and we should continue to treat it as different. I mean, I don't think any of us would argue how pervasive it's becoming, but it's becoming pervasive because of the richness of the difference of mobile experience versus desktop experience.
Well, and I'm not arguing that mobile goes away. I actually, if I'm arguing anything, it's probably the desktop goes away. That those devices that we think of as the desktop computer become a tablet on our, or even the furniture that we use, whatever that vision is, but that this differentiation of device is more about, it is modality, but I think mobility is a fact of life less than a modality.
So one of the things that I'm starting to see from mobile design gurus and people in the mobile design space is the idea of mobile first, right? So taking a look at what's your experience when you're designing a service, look at mobile first, understand what the mobile experience is, because actually the majority of people who are using your service might be on mobile, right? Especially that's true in the developing world, but increasingly it's becoming true in the developed world as well.
Sure.
So think about mobile first, then think about what, how do you translate that experience to the
and to that point, you're comment about mobile and checking your gate. I mean, frankly, walking through a busy airport, looking at your mobile phone to figure out where your gate is really annoying to the person behind you trying to catch the plane. It's not a good modality, right? So we have to really boost some of that. For all intents and purposes, what you just described in checking your gate is a desktop experience in the palm of your hand.
No, it's true.
Not a mobile experience.
I think it's true. And I think if you look at the mobile platforms that consumers and customers have chosen, it is about those platforms that have truly understood the mobile experience of whatever use case it is, right?
You know what's really scary, by the way? There's one event that I think a lot of us should keep our eye on, and that is Apple inevitably removing iTunes and syncing with iTunes as a requirement to actually use an iPhone or an iPad. I foresee, my grandparents and even my mom just using her iPad as her main computing device. That by calling it mobile, it becomes almost insulting to how they use it because they don't want to be handicapped. They want to have the full experience as well. And I think the other thing, and I'm not going to open up a can of worms here, but the fact is, things like companies are starting to embrace the fact that they don't have to make an app. It's not necessary to make an app all the time. Yeah, and I think that's happening. I'm super, super excited because nobody else is going to be, I want an app. And all it does is read stuff. It doesn't make a difference. Just do it on your browser. There's no difference. Stuff like that.
Yeah, no, totally right. Totally right.
Okay, great. So if there is a shift in modality, what do you see, what would make a really rich, what mobile app or non-app, as the case may be, Daniel, would you like to see?
Well, I think that increasingly, so coming back to the perennial walking through the airport thing, I mean, yes, that is actually not a very good user experience, and also the idea
it's perfect if you're the user, it's not so great if you're the one behind the user.
Yeah. Well, it's not even good for you because you're going to walk into a pillar or something like that, But
they have an app for that, by the way.
That's just one less annoying person at the airport, so far as I can tell.
But what about an app that is augmenting your experience? So either augmented reality in this way is not actually that compelling, I think. But once we start to have displays that actually integrate into your stylish eyewear, then we're going to start to see that is going to create a whole different kind of experience of mobile or of being mobile and of services. But even without that, you could still have devices that buzz you, devices that do different things, that alert you in different ways to stuff happening around you. And I think that's where I see a lot of innovation happening right now, especially, and I know this is kind of a bad word, but especially in the mobile advertising space, where I think we've been hung up on some of these old use cases, like you walk by a Starbucks and you get a coupon. That use case has been completely disproved. Nobody wants that. That's the kind of use case that's going to make people not really like Starbucks very well. It's not a good.
But how about rewards for achievements in games, dude? Come on, man.
What's the evolution of that incorporates some of Brian's thinking and emotional connection to a brand, right? And that's where I want to see the innovation happen.
Yeah, I think for me, and this is personal feeling, I'm a lazy internet user, right? Like I was looking for the weather in Bilbao this morning in my hotel room. I went to a popular internet portal and typed in weather in Bilbao. Like, that's a lazy way to use the internet. And for me, I think if we can get mobile first, thinking about how we render the full experience of web in that kind of platform, then I think the things that we'll do will start to become very, very incredible. And two quick examples, right? I think living in the UK, if we can get to a place where the UK National Health Service is starting to use even the mobile technology that's available today to make decisions, we're going to be in a better place. And I think if brands can start to interact with consumers using much richer context and much richer mobile experiences that aren't necessarily driven by apps, then that's also going to be richer too, right?
Well, I'm getting every sign they possibly can throw at it. Run out of time and gone over, so we're going to have to bring this conversation to a close, although I think we could go on for quite a while. Perhaps during the coffee break, you'll have an opportunity to speak with these gentlemen and ask your questions. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you. We'll have a coffee break now. Coffee break. And then I hope At the top of the hour, you come back for our final session, and rumor has it there might be some RIM devices to be shared. So please come back at the top of the hour.